Good morning and welcome in. This is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel.
You are a vital part of our game.
Thank you for having me on.
All the way to the green. It was, whoo, boy, was that fun.
I've always wanted to be on 5 Clubs. Thanks, Gary.
Good morning. Welcome in live on a Tuesday to 5 Clubs on Golf Channel and, of course, PGA TOUR Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. I am Gary Williams, and this program is always brought to you by Century Insurance. They invest in golf, the USGA, the First Tee, the PGA Tour, and right here at 5 Clubs. And their business is business insurance. If you need yours evaluated, do it with them. They want to be right by you. We got a lot to do, and we got a lot of time to do it. Our special 2 for Tuesday, 2 hours live here on Golf Channel. We get it about once a month, so here we have it. So let's get to our tee sheet to set up our 2 for Tuesday. He's just to my left. He's ready to chatter. He wants to update the standings. Why wouldn't he? Brendon de Jonge, who will be off to Connecticut. He's going to call the Puerto Rico Open on Golf Channel. Josh Carpenter, Sports Business Journal, also a contributor here at 5 Clubs. Webb Simpson, a Players Champion, a U.S. Open champion, 7 times a winner on the PGA Tour. He will be in studio as well. And then a little bit later on, Akshay Bhatia will join us as well, 2-time winner on the PGA Tour. Off to a good start, had the 54-hole lead at Pebble Beach. Thoughts on the beginning of his year and this big stretch starting this week at Bay Hill. So again, 2 hours on a Tuesday. That is your tee sheet. And I mentioned Brendon de Jonge, and here he sits. Of course, his program, you can listen to it a little bit later on this morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Sirius XM, Wagyu Filet with Johnson Wagner. My friend, good morning. Good to see you.
Thanks, Gary. Good to see you, too.
All right. Well, let's do a little TGL. I mean, a little touch, a little treatment. Last night, somebody qualified for the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it was a big night for LA. Tommy Fleetwood, who I do want to get your thoughts on, not so much about him carrying the hammer flag in his back pocket, but LA takes out New York. And if you consider LA's team, 2 of the 3 guys on that team have already won this year in Justin Rose and Collin Morikawa. And Tommy Fleetwood, his 2 starts on the PGA Tour, top 10s. This team, form-wise, indoor, outdoor, doesn't matter. It's very good.
Yeah, they're pretty stacked. I think Rosie's already made an albatross on this. Got pretty close to making a hole-in-one last night in TGL as well. There was some good golf played from what I saw.
They've had, I'm actually going to be there tonight. How about that?
Nice, very nice.
My first chance to go into the building. We're going to be at the James Hardy Pro Football Hall of Fame tomorrow down in Boca. So headed down later today, going to go to the match tonight. And then, of course, is Collin, who won a couple of weeks ago. I will say this about not only this, the fact that LA is in. Scott Van Pelt, who I'm sure you love SVP, as do I. And he's been on the show. Look forward to having him again, hopefully soon enough. I love what he said. He said, LA is in now, and they are kind of like the Florida Gators of the TGL play. Like, nobody wants to play them. And first of all, I agree with him about Florida when it comes to the NCAA tournament. When we get analogous about indoor golf teams to NCAA tournament teams, now we're in the sweet spot. Only SVP could do that.
Yeah, you got to dig pretty deep to find that one. But I like the comparison. I like the comparison.
I do too. Now, before we go any further, our picks will come tomorrow. Big 2 weeks, huge purses, big money for our team. You lived in the cellar last year.
I did.
I thought you were taking out a lifetime lease
I'm
on the cellar.
I'm disappointed in myself from last year. This year,
okay, well, you, sir, as we update the standings, and again, our picks coming tomorrow, look at you. Look at you.
I want nothing more than to run my mouth, Gary, but I know better. I was so bad last year that it kind of feels like this bubble's going to burst at some point, too. But I feel like I need to take a picture of that as well.
And by the way, that money very well could have. Same with me, because I got a T2, as did you, because we both had Shane Lowry. So let me start with you, because as much as give credit to the guy who's been opportunistic, Nico Echeverria, because he's now won 3 times. His first year, he missed 23 cuts on the PGA Tour. Still missed a lot the second year, but again, in those 2 years, the reason why he kept his exempt status is that he jumped up and win golf tournaments, and now he's won for the third time. He didn't make a bogey on the weekend. Enormous credit to him. Do you have an episode that you go, you know, and again, you're not in that arena anymore, but that you lived with, something that festered with you? Because I don't know how this doesn't fester with Shane Lowry.
Well, to answer the first part of your question, all the tournaments I screwed up were a slow burn. So I don't have one where it kind of happened that quickly.
The late crash.
Don't have that late crash. But as far as it festering, it has to. Shane, this is going to take a while for Shane to get over. He needs to find a way to get back into contention very quickly and knock down that door before it really starts manifesting and really starts growing, because that's a tough one to take.
It is, and you and I were talking before the program started about Dubai earlier this year.
Yeah.
You know, it's the Dubai Invitational, but Rory's in the field. He had a solid week, even though he said after it, I never was really thinking about winning. Well, Shane Lowry stood on the 18th tee of that tournament, tied for the lead, and made a double on the last hole. And it was kind of like, how did that happen? Because it was his third shot that trickled into the penalty area after he hit a wedge into the back bunker. And this is off of Bethpage, which has a lot of people thinking, how can that experience not fortify your mind to a place where these types of things should seem avoidable?
Well, that's the thing, and you look at Shane. You mentioned Bethpage, the Ryder Cup pressure. We talk about it so often. It's greater than anything else. I obviously never had the ability to play a Ryder Cup, but did play a President's Cup. I understand that when people say that pressure is that much more, it is. It is so amplified. And not only that, but you also look back to an Open Championship in 2019 that Shane Lowry was able to win in front of the Irish crowds, in front of his home crowds. Rory McIlroy talked about the pressures of that. Like, it was greater than anything he'd ever dealt with. So it's very, very strange to see someone like Shane Lowry get in that position that he was in on Sunday, where he'd looked in complete control and then just absolutely out of the blue hit the shot that he hit on 16 and then followed up with the shot on 17. We were talking earlier, the shot on 17 doesn't happen if 16 didn't happen.
I'm with you totally.
But it's very, very strange. And to look back that it's been since 2019, since Shane Lowry has won on the PGA Tour in an individual event.
You know, he won a big event on the DP World Tour between then and now. But the last 3 years, his final round scoring average, last year, not awful at 81st, but again, he's one of the 25 to 30 best players in the world.
Without a doubt. The
year before that, he was outside the top 170 in final round scoring average, and the year before that, he was outside the top 140. And you know, we're looking at his major record. In addition to the win, he's got a second in a U.S. Open where he did not play well in that final round at Oakmont, but he was the leader going into that final round. He was tied for 6th in the Masters going into the final round last year and shot 81. And everything is washed away, whatever anybody else did, because Rory crossed the line. He's also got a 4th, and he's got a win, a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 4th in the 4 different majors. But yet inside of that are these dubious final rounds, and now he's got these few episodes. So I ask you this, how do you exercise that? Do you exercise that with self-talk? Or is it only going to be self-fulfilling once you break through the vortex physically and really kind of wash it away by the experience of winning again?
I think it's a combination of both, but I think you have to do it. You have to cross that line. You have to break through and get past this. And then all of a sudden these become an afterthought. The ones that got away, you start thinking about the one that you were able to do it and get across that line.
I was pointing out this book several weeks ago, and I feel like it's you know, the message of the book is about resistance in life and how we deal with resistance. Resistance is usually the strongest for the things that matter the most to us. And here he is facing the music Sunday after not getting it done, saying, I had it in hand, I wanted to win it for my 4-year-old, and how resistance is strongest the closer we get to the accomplishment of the thing that matters most to us. And how do you get past it? And that's why, you know, this pursuit is so damn compelling, but also at times can be just so damn deflating.
Oh, without a doubt. And to your point there, kudos to Shane Lowry for standing up there and answering all the tough questions.
And without getting bowed up without getting, combative in any way. And look, he's had other moments where you're going, yeah, that I wish that had not happened. But on Sunday night, not only did he face it, he faced it with introspection and with complete professionalism. And he didn't go there with the attitude that asked me the wrong question.
Yeah.
I can't wait. He didn't do any of that.
No, I
to his credit.
thought it was brilliant. It was unfiltered, it was raw, and I love seeing that kind of emotion, that human side of these guys. And he said that the biggest thing that was in my mind, and maybe that was a little bit of a problem.
I think it's part of it.
There's a little problem that he got ahead of himself there, and I know it's the old cliche, but one shot at a time. Got ahead of himself, started thinking about his daughter running onto that 18th green, and he could give her a big hug after he won the tournament.
I was listening to Brad Faxon yesterday with Michael Breed, and Brad shared a similar episode in a playoff at the Canadian Open. And as he's getting ready, I think it was to putt in the playoff, he said, I was thinking about my acceptance speech. It happens to all of us.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah, it's remarkable. All right, before we talk about Florida and in the next 2 weeks, which are massive, do you have an overall kind of thought or takeaway on the first 7 events of 2026? What would it be?
I think we now have a crop of young, fearless Americans coming up now. You look at the Gotterups, the Bridgemans, you can throw Cootie into that. I think we have what is going to be the makeup of these team events for the years moving forward there. President's Cup teams, Ryder Cup teams, you're going to start seeing these guys. Throw Jake Knapp's name in there. I think we have a
fabulous start to the year.
Young crop of guys coming up there. Couple that with the fact that Scottie Scheffler can win with his B or C game, and it's always going to be a part of the mix.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this being a President's Cup year, which you mentioned, you played in it in 2013 at Muirfield Village. I'm not saying that you use the President's Cup as some type of trial for the Ryder Cup, but I do believe this is an opportunity for Brandt Snedeker to not make a big pivot, but to baptize some players
100%.
that you think have the type of chops that can represent in Ireland the following year. And what will be interesting is, are there guys, whether it be Justin Thomas, who's going to start his season this week, are there guys who are vulnerable enough that also may allow that opportunity to be amplified even more because they're just not right enough to be on that side?
I think it's a perfect opportunity if you're Brandt Snedeker to blood some of these younger guys coming through, see what kind of chops they have, see how they perform under that scrutiny, under that intense pressure. That is a team event. And listen, there is a difference between the Ryder Cup and the President's
There
Cup,
is.
obviously because of results for one, and just it doesn't have the history of the Ryder Cup. But I think you still get to see what these guys are capable of under that microscope.
Yeah, I really believe I would add the name of a guy who's going to be on the show later. I think there's no reason to think that Akshay Bhatia is not also going to be in that conversation, not only starting now, but throughout spring into the summertime before that. It could be very interesting. All right, we're here for 2 hours till 10 a.m. Eastern Time live here on Golf Channel. We've got Brendon till the bottom of the hour. Josh Carpenter will talk to the business side of the industry with him in this hour, and then the next hour, Webb Simpson will take the seat occupied by Brendon right now. We'll talk to him about a number of things, including the challenges of trying to be a part-time player, which is self-admitted on his part now on the PGA Tour at the age of 40, and then Akshay Bhatia as well. Nice to have you with us. Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 92. We are back right after this. Back in on this Tuesday here on 5 Clubs Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. This segment brought to you by Peter Millar. Walked into the store, not only in Charlotte last week, the store in New York City over the weekend. The spring line is spectacular. And whatever it is that you need, look, I've got on, a sport coat and a shirt and a tie. In the pocket square, all Peter Millar, but the guy to my left has got on a performance quarter zip. That is indicative of they have everything that you could possibly need in your life at petermillar.com. Brendon de Jonge with me. His program on SiriusXM with Johnson Wagner will be at 11 a.m. It is every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and he'll be calling the Puerto Rico Open on Golf Channel as well. Scheffler not in Puerto Rico. He's at Bay Hill. How would you explain or give an idea or thought about these Thursdays, these 3 straight sluggish Thursdays? What do you make of it? Just an anomaly?
Yes, I don't think there is an explanation necessary. I think it's a coincidence. It's just happened. And if you look at it, all 3 of them have happened very differently. He actually played well at Pebble, and he said this: I just wasn't able to put a score on it. Scottie Scheffler doesn't say that very often.
No, because he's a great salvation expert.
Yep.
He maximizes the opportunities, and there's an efficiency to it. So you think all 3 were different enough that there's no pattern or theme here? Yeah,
you look back to even WM, and there was just a couple scruffy chips around the greens, a couple very basic up and downs that he didn't get up and down. And no, there's really nothing to worry about. I will say this, though: he caught a massive break at Riviera. With the stoppage. I don't know what he was going to shoot in that opening round, but it wasn't going to be as good as he salvaged to get in at 3 over par.
Good point.
He caught a massive break. They were about to turn and play 12 through 16 straight back into that breeze. They got to stop, come out in the morning. The wind had actually switched. They played those holes downwind. I don't believe Scottie would have played the weekend if we didn't get that stoppage when it came.
Yeah, the cut was modest, but there was a cut that still existed. He had that makeable putt on 11 where he marked, and that was his first, that was his first stroke. And yes, while it was chilly, downright chilly on Friday morning, the point about the mental reset and all that, I think the point you made about scruffiness and inconsistency around the greens for yes, substandard ball striking for him. If you look at him, one of the reasons why he does salvage things, he does it in less dramatic fashion than Tiger habitually did with these hero shots and super floppers and all that. Last year, he was 3rd on the PGA Tour in scrambling, just under 69%. Those 3 weeks, those Thursday rounds, he was 8 of 20 scrambling at 40%. Those things, I think, are lost because of just the dogged, relentless, hole-high 15-footers that he gives himself. They were lulled to sleep by, he's pretty good around the... No, he's not pretty good. He's among the very best in the world. And I think that was another part of it. 8 of 20 over the course of those Thursdays, I think, contributed to him being less than efficient.
Yeah, without a doubt. And a big part of that was the putting on the Poe as well. He missed a bunch of short putts. Obviously, your scrambling numbers are going to not be good if you're not making those short putts. I think he's one of the guys that's most relieved to be getting off that Poana.
Doesn't he make, though, this Thursday particularly interesting?
100%. 100%. It's going to be
worth
watching.
What if he's one over at the turn? I mean, I described it as nobody wants a rash. He's got a small rash right now, but we don't want it to, it's like, that rash is cleared up. And maybe it clears up Thursday. If it goes into 4 weeks, and even though he figured out a way and he got squeezed out of the top 10 by some guys still on the golf course, when he finished, he was tied for 9th. So again, he's got the win. He's got, again, his worst result is a tie for 12th. Understandably, a lot of people are going to play him this week to win.
Oh, without a doubt. And I can guarantee you that he stands on that first tee on Thursday and he's not thinking, I need to break this trend. That is the last thing on Scottie Scheffler's mind.
I agree. Rory, 2 starts, Northern California, Southern California. What stands out about the 2 weeks in California for Rory?
That he went back to the blades, and it was a fantastic decision. You remove just a couple holes from Pebble, and Rory's probably lifting that trophy there. A couple wayward shots. I think he made a big number on number 4.
He made those 2 doubles on day 1 after he had gotten off to a really good start. And the first one was like, how did that just happen?
Yeah, he missed a couple short putts on both the par 3s on Spy, made 2 doubles there, and then a couple other big numbers at Pebble. Made 7 on 4, made 6 on 10, I believe. Just a mess. Made 7 on 18. You remove those, and I think there's a whole lot of positive from McIlroy. Ball striking was brilliant at Riviera. It was brilliant. And I've always said this, that when Rory's comfortable varying the trajectories with the driver, that's when Rory's playing his best.
Totally agree.
We saw it at the 2024 U.S. Open. I know he didn't ultimately end up winning there, but put on a display with the driver, and it was more of the same. We really needed to find a fairway, flight it way down. I think it's very, very positive, everything in the McIlroy.
I'm totally with you. I thought it was, and I wish the golf course was even firmer and faster, because I think that the way that he was shaping shots, you mentioned all the windows being open, the low apex of drivers, particularly on 18, seeing that shot, executing that shot, to me, I didn't think about Augusta National. I did think about the stadium course, because nobody ever, before he won there for the first time in 2019, nobody fashioned him as a tactician. He was the aerial guy. He was straight up in the air, and ground wasn't necessarily his friend. Now he's won it twice, and the guy who has 3 wins there never won it there, and that was Jack in the infancy of the event when it was created in '74. What if he walks away at 41, 42, and I don't think he'll stop playing, but what if he has the most players? I think Scheffler's going to have a lot to say to that. But what if Rory has 4 Players Championships? What does that do to the overall heft of his historical resume? I
mean, definitely puts him up a level. I mean,
I think it does.
Carries a ton of weight. As you say, they're not done by anybody. On a golf course, that you said it there, that you really at first wouldn't have thought ever would have played into McIlroy's hands. I would have been more surprised to see him win a couple as to not see him win there.
Yeah.
Because it's a golf course that doesn't suit his game.
And I don't think, even though you can say, well, you can use driver, not liberally. I mean, I think that
spots. You got to pick and choose spots.
Spots. Yep. It's tactical, and for him to have that, I thought of the stadium course. Not that he can't factor for certain at Augusta National, and I thought of Shinnecock as well. Which I think is the big game that he wants to hunt, in particular this year. Fleetwood, same with Rory, 2 starts, 2 good results. Are you particularly bullish starting this week with a good record, hadn't won at Bay Hill, with Fleetwood over the next, month or so?
Yes.
You are?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And if you'd asked me that a month ago, I might have said something different, because he got off to a slow start in the Middle East. Didn't play great in Dubai on 2 golf courses that he knows very well. But since coming over here, I mean, you look at it, he's broken par all 8 rounds that he's played, 7 rounds in the 60s, 2 very quiet top 10s. I think the start of this year is absolutely ideal for Fleetwood.
We've got, a handful of events between now and the Masters, but who needs to find it? Like, who's idling in a way that if you keep idling, it's likely that I'm not going to have you top of mind come the first full week in April.
Well, J.J. Spawn, for one. J.J. Spawn's got off to a terrible start this year, and I'm not that surprised, Gary, and I hate saying that, but the expectations of now being the U.S. Open champion, and not only the expectations that we put on him in the media, but the expectations that you put on yourself. It's an added pressure every time you tee it up, and you don't get away from it. You get introduced as the U.S. Open champion every time you tee it up. He's got off to a slow start, really needs to get something going. And then Keegan Bradley as well. And Keegan Bradley worries me, because I talked to Bob Harrig the other day, and Bob Harrig said that Keegan spoke to him and still talking about how this Ryder Cup loss is weighing on him. And you can't play good golf like that.
No, I appreciate how intensely personal everything was to him. But at some point, as hard as it is, because the other thing that I think can be associated with this is martyrdom. Like, it's, gosh, the weight of the world is on me. I think he still has plenty to not only be on a President's Cup team, but it's not unrealistic, even though he's rolled the odometer past 40, to not captain the team, but be on another team. I asked him that before the end of the year, and again, similarly to what he said to Bob, it's like he's got all of this anguish that he's battling, and like you said, it's very hard to clear the mechanism and go out there and try to compete against these guys. Let me ask you one last thing about another guy who I think he wasn't in the really heated cauldron late. Scheffler, do you feel like it's getting closer for him?
I feel like it's trending in the right direction. I still think he's got a little ways to go, but I do feel like there's certainly an upward trend in what we're seeing out of Xander. There's less of the loose shots. He really struggled with the driver last year. Struggled with the putter as well, but really struggled with the driver. I think we're starting to see less and less of those big misses.
Okay, couple guys maybe you've already mentioned them as it relates to the United States President's Cup team. Anybody that you would not be surprised jumped up? I'm not going to say, you're picking them to win, but you would not be a bit surprised they contend this week, next week, or in 5 weeks.
What I've seen out of Jake Knapp early in this season is
through the bag.
Spot on through the bag, exactly. No weaknesses at all. It's still hard to believe that he's only won once on the PGA Tour with all these good finishes that he's putting together now. Wouldn't be at all surprised to see Knapp win. Wouldn't be at all surprised to see Pearson Coody win either. I think Pearson Coody, again, strong through the bag. Can tell that he's getting more and more comfortable out there, gaining more and more confidence. Lot to like from that young guy as well.
Okay, so you will call the Puerto Rico Open this week. World Feed for the Players next week. The next time your family will see you when? July 4th?
I'll stop in every now and then, maybe have dinner on the way out, but it's I've got a good stretch coming up.
I know you do. Always great having you in here. Your show coming up in a couple hours at 11 a.m. Eastern with Johnson Wagner. Thank you as always.
Thank you. Always good fun.
All right. That, of course, Brendon de Jonge, Wagyu Filet, 11 o'clock. And, of course, you can hear his call of the Puerto Rico Open on Golf Channel. We continue the business side of things. There is a strong likelihood that clarity, like understanding of what real change is going to look like on the PGA Tour. We will discuss that with Josh Carpenter, Sports Business Journal. Of course, another contributor here at 5 Clubs. He joins me next in studio with him right after this. Back in on this Tuesday here on 5 Clubs, bottom of the hour, live on Golf Channel, also PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. In this segment brought to you by Century Insurance. Their business is business insurance, plus being invested in golf at every level, from the first tee to the USGA to the PGA Tour, and right here at 5 Clubs, it's Century Insurance. Now he's like, yeah, I can talk about that because that's what he covers, the business of the game of golf, whether it be ratings or whether it be sponsorship and everything in between, including what people are wearing. That is Josh Carpenter from the Sports Business Journal. He joins me now, and he's a 5 Clubs contributor. Great to have you with me. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Gary. As always.
Well, we're going to be tethered here over the next couple weeks because these are big weeks. They're big weeks for the players, and then next week with the players, we're all anticipating something significant. But before we get to that, I want, because you provide a lot of data on performance, the performance of the product on the television. How has it been? Give us an overall snapshot of what the PGA Tour has evaluated through now, I don't know if you've included the Cognizant, but at least 6 weeks in the entire West Coast swing. Has it been good? It's been slightly better than average? How would you describe it?
It's been a little above average, I would say. Numbers aren't in for the Cognizant yet, so we don't know those yet. There's been a change in Nielsen, the way they measure events this year. So numbers are going to look a little bit different than they have in the past. They're going to be a little bit higher. But again, you're using different metrics from one year to the other. So it's not an apples to apples comparison year to year. But I think they've been pretty strong. You had, Genesis wasn't as high as it could have been. You had a guy like Jacob Bridgman. Yep. No offense to him, but he's not a household name. And then, at Pebble Beach, you had Colin Morikawa win, but you were comparing to a Rory McIlroy win the year prior. So the numbers, were pretty good. CBS for the West Coast swing was up double digits, I think, year over year. So pretty okay to this point, I think.
And I think fair to say, again, like you said, all respect to Cognizant, they're dealt, as I said last week, not easy to be the meat in a signature series sandwich, which is 2 before you and 2 after. And you're moving from the West Coast to the East Coast. It may be the most precarious, challenging spot on the entire schedule. Find me another one. Tell me a spot that's more challenging than the Cognizant.
I don't think you can. I mean, you could look at maybe some of these summer events where it's just you've had, PGA Tour golf ongoing for 6 or 8 months, maybe right after
the Open Championship.
Right after the Open Championship, which in my mind, to me, the Open Championship is still kind of the end of the golf season. It's not the end of the golf season. I shouldn't say that. But things really scale down after that, even though you have the FedEx Cup playoffs coming after that. But yeah, my buddy Todd Fleming, who runs the Cognizant down there, it's a tough spot. But I don't know what happens at that event, going forward. Their sponsor deal is through 2030. That's a PGA Tour owned and operated event. So there's a lot of talk about cutting events and all this stuff. I don't know how they cut that event. You look at the juice. I know, and say what you will about the golf course down there. The field this year wasn't great. It tends to be a pretty exciting event with those closing holes, what you see down there. And Jack Nicklaus is still involved with that tournament as well. I don't see that event going away.
Yeah, I don't either. So you said something that may speak to what we think we're going to hear next week, and that is the alteration and how significant the alteration is starting in 27 and maybe with full crystallization of the whole thing by 28. If you feel to some modest degree gosh, after the Open Championship, so they probably think that. So how different is August going to be? You were the first person sitting in that chair who suggested, not in a flimsy way, that Genesis could see August. Do you expect Genesis to be an August date in 27?
I don't know about 27. I know that, and Tiger said this a couple weeks ago. He admitted, he said, hey, we're talking about that. So I don't think it's far-fetched at all to see Riviera, to see Pebble Beach in those late summer months. But next year, you have the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach in June. And in 2028, you have the Olympics at Riviera. So I don't think they're going to host a tour championship the same month as the Olympic competition.
Right.
So I think you could see that, but it might be on a rotational basis. It's not like every year the tour championship or the playoffs are going to be at Pebble Beach and Riviera. We've talked about Torrey Pines as a possible playoff event. I think you might see it on a more rotational basis. I don't know if we'll hear about that next week from Brian Rolapp when he addresses the media for the first time since August. I think the PGA Tour wants the Players Championship week to be about the Players Championship. And so if they come out and they say, well, we're moving the playoffs to California and all this stuff, then if they do that, the focus is not going to be on the Players Championship. It's going to be about all these changes that are happening. So I think they'll give a little bit of a peek behind the curtain next week, but maybe not the full look at what's coming, because I don't know that everything's been decided in terms of what is actually coming.
Yeah, because the best laid plans, look, contracts, whether it be with facilities or sponsors, and that would apply to something like Cognizant. And the point you made, which is important, because so many of these tour events used to be run by a local tournament.
Third parties.
Yes.
Yep.
And now there is more and more that are being operated by a division of the PGA Tour. They're not going to turn around and be in that position and then figure out a way to make them evaporate. They're going to do as much as they can to retain those events.
No, and look at the fall series as a good example. They're leaving Napa, they're leaving Jackson, they're not playing in Mississippi anymore, but they added 2 events, and they're both owned and operated events, right? So that's another example of, I don't think there's talk about cutting tournaments. I just don't see that happening. I think you've heard some more talk about a more tiered tour, which the tour is already bifurcated between the signature events and the full field events. So maybe what they end up doing is just creating more signature events, and then you have those other full field events. Look at all the full field tournaments that just extended their sponsorships through 2030. Zurich, 3M, Valspar, John Deere. These are all full field tournaments, John Deere, in kind of smaller markets that just extended through 2030, just last year.
Yep.
I don't think they're going to extend those deals through 2030 and then just cut them overnight.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think Cognizant is through 30.
Cognizant is through 2030, as well.
And that the facility is through 28 at PGA National.
Yeah, I don't know the facility deal, but I know the sponsorship is through 2030.
Which who knows? One thing about next week, like you said, you don't want to take away from something. First of all, you put a commercial spot out a month ago that got people all lathered up. That is going to be a question that's going to be not only belabored, but it's going to be talked about a lot, and that is the idea of what it is exactly. But to your point about not trying to distract away from what is the most important event on the tour itself
Yep.
and among the very best events in the world. So how do you have all this chum that's been in the water, whether it be Harris English last fall at the RSM, who became a renegade, and he's never been one before, probably won't be one since. How do you satisfy the interest in knowing what the future looks like without sharing too much that becomes the sideshow?
Yeah, it's a tough ask for roll-up next week. I think you get, like you said, you give a little bit of a peek. You know, one thing that has been was talked about a while ago, I feel like hasn't been talked about that much recently, is the format of the tour championship, for example. Like,
Yeah.
what does that look like? They went back to kind of a regular golf tournament this past year. I don't know that they said like, hey, this is going to last in perpetuity. Like maybe they change that this coming year. I don't know. I think you give some little nuggets without just blowing the thing out of the water. And I think they can't blow it out of the water because a lot of it hasn't been decided yet.
Okay.
The kind of company line of the tour is like no final decisions have been made. And I think, you know, you heard Tiger specifically say a few weeks ago that, hey, this could be over a couple year period.
Sure.
That they're making these changes. So I just don't know that they have enough to fully like just throw all the chum in the water next week.
Right, and trying to achieve what I think is one of their primary objectives, which is, you know, having footholds in major markets again. And whether it be New York, Philly, Boston, Chicago, trying to pull all that off simultaneously. And whether you have it in the bag or not, you don't want to share it all next week because that's too much. Again, there's a lot that we're looking forward to hearing, and I think you're right. You're not going to get as much as maybe you either want or expect next week. Something you had yesterday, tell people why it's important or significant or noteworthy that the extension of rights, whether it be the KPMG Women's PGA, Ryder Cup as well, because Golf Channel, in terms of the institution it was a part of formerly, they are not anymore. This is Versant, this is USA Sports. Explain to people the details of that and the significance of all of it.
Yeah, you basically had Golf Channel, which is part of this company Versant, you know, and USA Sports was for a long time a part of NBC Universal. And so they that company was spun out of NBC Universal last year. Now they're their own company. And what you've seen Golf Channel and USA Sports do is sign a fair amount of rights deals. Now, a lot of them have just been extensions. They signed a renewal with the USGA last year for those rights for a while going forward. They signed this deal with the Ryder Cup to keep the Ryder Cup on Golf Channel, on USA for a number of years going forward. It's just a 2-year extension on that deal that expired, I think, in
through 33
through
now?
33. The original deal was through 31. So along with these golf deals, they've started signing some other deals. WNBA, women's sports, getting in on that ground level. So I think it's just showing Versant USA's kind of commitment to sticking with it and really getting in on a lot of these live sports, which live sports are so important. Like that's some of the most important product that you can have. And so it's shown that commitment.
Yeah, it's to be in this position where it's a combination of your own original programming, but also, like you said, I mean, that is the lifeblood. It is rights. It's rights to live sports entities.
And locking up an event like the Ryder Cup,
which
which
is
is
massive.
And golf is maybe the 4th biggest event, maybe a lot of people would debate maybe the 3rd biggest event.
No question.
It's one of the big boys.
What's your view on Fleetwood being this charismatic, endearing free agent on the apparel front? This is one of the most. I'm totally into it. I'm totally into not only what he's wearing, although I am completely opposed to the double pleats. There's no way in the world he's going to usher in that era again. Please say no to that. But the idea of him wearing the logos of all the facilities, whether they be public facilities, private, I mean, he goes from Pebble Beach to Riviera. That is the ultimate.
Last night he's wearing TGL.
He's wearing TGL swag.
Yeah,
what do you make of this?
It's pretty interesting. I can't think he'll be an apparel free agent for a long time, but right now maybe he's just having
whole season?
I don't know. It's just hard to say. I mean, right now he's just having fun with it, right? I mean, is he going to be wearing a TPC Sawgrass, logos?
Of course he is.
Is he? I don't know.
You think he's not going to wear the umbrella this week?
I don't know. What was he? Was he in the Seminole Pro member yesterday? I don't know. Was he?
I didn't look closely enough.
I don't know. I was a little bit bleary-eyed trying to watch TGL last night. I was like, I think that looks like a Lululemon logo with his TJ. I was trying to figure out, like, has his LA Golf Club done a deal with Lululemon, you know, a license agreement? I'm not sure. It's one of the more interesting. You don't see guys do this ever.
Never.
I mean, you see like equipment kind of free agents. Brooks Koepka has done that, where he hasn't had a deal that, you know, restricts him to one piece of equipment. But it's wild to see kind of a top 10 player in the world do this. A lot of talk about.
He's one of the bona fide stars in the game.
One of the bona fides, FedEx Cup champion. There's been a lot of talk and kind of, you know, rumor, like, could he sign with Sunday Red, with Tiger's brand? They only have a handful of ambassadors at this point.
Fleetwood, big splash.
On top of Tiger, Fleetwood would be, you know, one of the first really big ones.
Yeah, no doubt. As far as, just back to Florida here for a second, because so much was made of LA and Pebble and the idea of the flexibility of them going from February to August. If anything happens to Florida in terms of the cadence of these events going forward, what do you think it would be?
I think maybe you see it move up in the schedule.
Okay.
Maybe if they move to a Super Bowl timeframe start
mid-February.
Mid-February. Maybe they go from Phoenix, maybe they start the season, and I'm just speculating.
Yeah.
Maybe they start the season in Phoenix, and maybe to help the Cognizant out, maybe they start the season at the Cognizant, or make that the second event of the season. You know, in Florida, beginning of the Florida swing, not on the heels of 3 signature events.
Sure.
And before you have Doral added back into the mix this year. Maybe they make this a swing through. I would argue back a decade ago, 15 years ago, those tournaments worked, even being in a similar market between Doral and the Palm Beach tournament, the old Honda Classic. Those tournaments drew big fields. It just matters where they fall on the schedule. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, you didn't have these elevated events that would suck away some of these big names. And so I would think maybe Florida moves up in the schedule and you play it a little bit earlier.
Last thing, very quickly, Liv. They get the lunar eclipse at Adelaide. They get Anthony Kim from the Ashes playing with Rahm and DeChambeau at the most lathered up environment.
Yeah.
They get a good bump. Is Hong Kong a tell? Is Hong Kong validate the sky? How do you do this? How do you evaluate these numbers?
I don't know how you gauge Hong Kong. I mean, they have, HSBC signed on as a league sponsor for them last year, and
Right.
they are the title sponsor for this event in Hong Kong this week. I'm sure they would love having Anthony Kim up near the top of the leaderboard again. We saw, John Rahm, I don't believe has won a live event yet since he's moved over there, and you heard he made some news this morning with some comments about paying some of those DP World Tour fines. I don't think Liv would mind him staying in the news cycle and winning
For
a
sure.
tournament. Certainly DeChambeau, in the lead up to the Masters, and how is he going to play in the major season. The overseas events are still just, you have to kind of look at them in that market. They're not going to resonate a ton here in the U.S. because they're being played in a lot of cases in the middle of the night.
hours.
So it's hard to gauge how they're going to play here in the States. But they're committed. They just, I believe this morning they announced that their dates for next year in Hong Kong. So again, they're setting that footprint. They're not going anywhere anytime soon.
Thank you as always. Look forward to being with you next week at the Players.
Look forward to it, Gary.
All right, that is Josh Carpenter, Sports Business Journal contributor here at Five Close. Those were winning words presented by Century Insurance. Evaluate your business insurance with them. They want to be right by you. We come back, wrap up this hour. We got another live hour for you. Webb Simpson joins me in studio, won the Players in 2018, of course, a U.S. Open champion as well, and Akshay Bhatia as well in the second hour of Five Clubs here on a Tuesday. We're back right after this. Back in on this Tuesday here on Five Clubs. We got another hour coming. Webb Simpson, Akshay Bhatia with me. This segment of the program brought to you by Peter Millar. When it comes to having a brand that you can be reliant on for everything you wear, everything, Peter Millar is the answer. They are the premier luxury brand, and you can go to all their retail stores all over the country. And even easier is just simply going to petermillar.com. With Bay Hill this week, look, there are a lot of great memories, a lot of players that are still in this field, including Rory McIlroy, who for a couple of years after ascending to world number one, did not go to the event. And I sat in a studio with Arnold Palmer, and he was kind of joking, not entirely. when Rory had gotten to world number one in 2012, at about this time of the year, Arnold came into the studio and he said, if he doesn't come to my event, I'm going to break his arm. He said that in front of a camera that was broadcast. Rory didn't come that year, but he came 2 years later, and they were two people that you could tell there was a warmth right away. How could you not? I will tell you, because we're going to be at the James Hardy tomorrow, and I won't, have a chance to expound upon this. Being around him, even though it was the twilight of his life, there was something, even though it was among the biggest events on the PGA Tour, there was something inherently colloquial about it, because he was somebody who rode around on a golf cart with his own clubs on that cart, thinking, who knows, maybe I'll play an emergency 9 with the two guys who are leading this event. There was something about it that was like a time capsule. And even though, and it was melancholy to see his golf clubs put on the far right edge of the range, which was his spot, posthumously, there was something about it that was endearing. And they still do it today. And it is now, look, the man passed in September of 2016. But not only the big omnipresent trophy that sits there between the 9th green and the 10th tee and right there at the first tee, it's all the touches. It's his office. It's the cardigan. It is the Arnold Palmer that you order in the locker room. He may be gone. Not only is he not forgotten, the presence is still very much there. And that cardigan that someone's going to win on Sunday, it's stylish, and it's one of the most endearing images on the tour. Hour 2 coming up. Good morning and welcome in. This is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel.
You are a vital part of our game.
Thank you for having me on.
All the way to the green. It was, whoo, boy, was that fun.
I've always wanted to be on 5 Clubs. Thanks, Gary.
Back in, and you're going, what do you mean back in? It's just, they're re-airing it. No, this is another live hour, 2 hours live on a Tuesday here on Golf Channel. And this hour, brought to you by, like every hour is, Century Insurance. Their investment in golf runs very, very deep. And I'm not talking about just here. I'm talking about with the United States Golf Association, the First Tee and the PGA Tour. All levels, they want to impact and invest in the game of golf, but their business is business insurance. Evaluate yours with them. Joining me here in this hour in studio, it's nice to have him as a quasi-neighbor, somebody who has won a U.S. Open and a Players. Webb Simpson, and a little bit later on, Akshay Bhatia. So Webb, first of all, it's great seeing you always. Thank you for coming out the time. It's great to see the Sprinter van out in the parking lot. People don't understand. You're an early riser. You love your coffee. You make your own. You don't have to rely on all these markets around the country to do so. The shuttle starts at what time? 7:30, you said, for the kids?
7:30, and they know if they're not in it, they're left at home. They miss school. Yeah, the 12-passenger Sprinter van is helpful because it's not just so we can fit 12 people in, it's that we can separate my kids on each row so they can't hit each other and fight. So
I hope that, we all have things that we want to protect our kids. Do you have a camera inside of the Sprinter van? Because that, like, when the kids grow up, and at the holidays, if you look back at some episodes of the kids going off to school in the Sprinter van,
yeah,
and don't tell them that you're recording them. That to me would be golden.
Well, right now we have, I trust the majority. So there was a little conflict this morning before I got in the Sprinter van. I was fixing my second cup of coffee. And so there was a vote of who was right. So we're still working on telling the truth in our family, all the basics,
I bet. Okay, when you were in here last year, you were talking about the idea that, I'm going to divest my competitive energies to some degree, not altogether. First of all, before we talk about, the 3 starts you've had this year, what was the hardest thing to deal with not being out there every week, and then the challenges of not being out there every week when you were trying to be as good as you can be as a part-time player?
I went into it optimistic as can be because I watched Steve Stricker do it.
Yeah.
When Bobby, his oldest, got to high school, I believe it was, he cut back to 12 to 14 events. And Steve Stricker, I watched him make it to the Tour Championship year after year. He was still in the top 10 or 15 in the world ranking. I'm like, okay, he paved the way. And so when I started this journey, same kind of thing, 5 kids, sports, things they're involved in, I didn't want to miss it. I thought I'm going to try to be like Steve, but it proved a lot harder than I thought. And I think the hardest thing professionally was I was playing at this certain level for a number of years, and all of a sudden it becomes a struggle. And, playing once every 3 weeks is a lot harder than I thought. Rusty, yes. And you're going against guys, they've been on the road 2 weeks, they have reps, they're warm. I'm in Charlotte, the weather's a little cold, so I show up at tournaments. It just takes me a little while to get my feet going. But I'm still learning, I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm really optimistic about this year. I feel like my game is better than it was last year, although I haven't shown it yet, but I got some good tournaments coming up.
What is the thing that reignites maybe the quickest, and what is the thing that you've struggled to find the form with that has taken the longest? Are there a couple of things?
Yeah, I think the positive is mentally I'm a lot better now than I used to be, in the sense of things don't bother me near as quickly. I think I'm fresher mentally. I'm rested, obviously. But it's the little things that you can't really practice unless you're under the gun. It's in between 7-iron and 8-iron with wind out of the right, and you've just bogeyed 2 of your last 3 holes. How do you mentally stay in it in that moment? If I'm at Quail Hollow with some buddies, it doesn't matter as much. So I think the pressure that comes when it matters most is what I have to get used to a little bit. But I do look forward to Thursdays. Thursdays is like, this is time to compete. This is the fun moment for me this week. But it's an ongoing process, and I feel ready every week. It's just a matter of when's the last time I played? Yep. What am I coming off of? It's hard to miss cuts now, playing as few tournaments as I'm playing, because if Phoenix Open, I missed the cut, and I got to wait another couple weeks to tee it up at the Cognizant Classic. So that's a hard part of it.
So you played Sony, like you said, you played Phoenix and you played the Cognizant. A lot can change in a short amount of time, and it's not like you've been gone. But I was like, you played with Johnny Kiefer. Mm-hmm. I think the last day, or was it the last day at Sony, or Saturday?
Day.
Last day.
Yep.
So here's a guy who was so good on the Korn Ferry Tour that he really impacted not only being fully exempt, but like his world ranking. Mm-hmm. That's how productive he was. You're focused on yourself, but did he make an impression on you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Paul and I, my caddy, we talked after about how much upside Johnny Kiefer has. He has speed. He knows what he's doing. Really, there's no weaknesses. And it's fun to see a young guy like that come out. He's young. He's energetic. You can tell he loves the game. And I can't remember what he shot that day, but I could tell, like, this guy's a guy we're going to see for a long time. I think he'll win multiple times on the PGA Tour. And, I mean, I think at one point he said yes, sir, to me, which I reminded him I'm not that old.
It's very debilitating. When I get a Mr. Williams, I'm like, really? Really?
Yeah. I know. When I grow my beard out, people often ask me when I'm going to the Champions Tour. And I tell them I have a decade left.
Right.
So.
It's, I had Lucas on and Justin Rose on last month. And Justin was the only guy in his 40s who won last year on tour. And now he's done it again. And obviously Lucas had that multi-win season a couple years ago. And I was looking, 20 years ago, there were 8 guys in their 40s who won in 2005. 3 of them won multiple times. The following year, Fred Funk won the Players at 48, which obviously you won, but that was in 2018. Why do you think this is happening? Why does 40 feel more vulnerable now than it did 20 years ago?
I think there's just been a bigger push of younger guys getting on tour. So when I first played in 2008, there were tons of guys in their 40s on the PGA Tour who were still really good at the game. But every year that I've been out there, the average age has gotten younger and younger. So I think there's the Johnny Kiefers of the world. There's been this push from guys, Tom Kim's 19, 20 who are coming out on tour. Blades Brown, I asked him last week how old he was, and I almost had a heart attack. I didn't realize he's still a teenager. And so I think it's just shortening the career span of some of these guys who at once could play till they're 50 years old out here or beyond on the PGA Tour. But it's just more competitive now than ever. And I think, it's fun to make the Scottie Scheffler, Tiger Woods comparisons because the competition then was great. It's great now in a different way. He might have had a greater 5 or 6 guys right behind him than Scottie has, but Scottie's got a much deeper field he's having to beat week in, week out. It wasn't that common in 2008 when I came out for the 180th ranked player in the world to win a tournament, but we're seeing it all the time on the PGA Tour.
You know, measurables is something I've heard from a lot of players with experience like yourself about this younger generation. They're blessed with things that seem like you have to have, starting with speed. How about the innate ability to score? And do you think these younger guys, it's because that they are equipped with data so that their game plan is more formalized, or do some of them, do you think, have this amazing intuition about how to score the golf ball? What do you think it is?
I think you brought it up. I think it's mainly data. We know what gets the job done more than ever. You see performance coaches out there, statisticians, guys have short game coaches, guys have full swing coaches. When I came out, it was just you had a coach, and there was no stats really to look at. I mean, putts per green in regulation, greens in regulation, fairways hit was about all we had. Mark Brody kind of changes the landscape of the golf world when it comes to learning from data, and he really helped us, you know, understand what matters most, what gets the job done best. And so I think it's mainly data. These young guys are able to look at, or at least their coaches are, what matters, what can get me to the next level fastest. And, you know, they can look at the best wedge player on tour. What does he do well? You know, what's his process? I think there's way more of that going on, conversations, learning, than when I got out there. Guys were just figuring it out as they went. But now we know, okay, optimization for hitting a ball far is this, this, and this. And guys adjust their game to that. And so guys are getting, I think, more out of their game now than ever before.
You guys, and I remember, I felt like Snedeker was on the front end of it. There were a few others in terms of the metrics and the data. Is there something that you absolutely have embraced wholeheartedly, and is there something that you still kind of hold at arm's length that you don't value as much that maybe some others do?
Yeah, well, in 2017, I got paired a lot with Dustin Johnson and John Rahm, and it just so happened both of them are about 40 yards by me. So I'm playing a pretty high level of golf. I won the Players in 18. I was last in the field in driving distance. I had a ball speed on Sunday, I remember, of 160. But I played enough golf courses and enough golf with those two guys where I felt like I'm behind the 8 ball every week. And there's enough 285-yard carries where I've got to get a little bit longer. So I started on a path, I thought very carefully, of getting longer. And I kind of had instant success. I won the Waste Management Phoenix Open in 20, followed by, after the COVID break, I won RBC Heritage. So I'm kind of drinking the Kool-Aid of hitting it further. Well, we know one of the ways to hit it further is to hit more up on it, hit it higher, further carry. Well, all of a sudden, that kind of technique is bleeding into my iron game. And my iron game had been the most consistent part of my game throughout my career. All of a sudden, that starts getting a little bit worse. My point of contact with the golf ball was getting further and further back, and I started to suffer. The game started to suffer. But I was blinded by the early success of those 2 wins, and I thought, you know, this is my best world ranking I've ever had, at 4th in the world. I'm going to keep going. So I kept trying to hit it further, but it kind of put me in a hole where it took me a long time to get out of that, and, you know, maybe I'm still working my way out. But now I don't care about distance. I care about hitting it in the fairway again. I feel like I've hit a threshold of driving distance that I can maintain through my 40s. Rosie, Adam Scott, you know, these are guys that are hitting as far as they've ever hit it.
Yeah.
So they're a great inspiration for people like me, kind of rounding into my 40s, knowing that if I stay healthy, my ball speed's probably not going to go anywhere.
Well, it's great to have Webb Simpson with us here on this Tuesday. Our conversation with him will continue. He mentioned the Players winning it in 2018, in addition to having that U.S. Open with the Players next week. His thoughts about that golf course, what is the most practical game plan for a golf course that either doesn't reward or discriminate against any style historically. More with Webb on this Tuesday right here on 5 Clubs right after this. Welcome back in on a Tuesday here live on Golf Channel. It is 5 Clubs in this segment brought to you by Century Insurance. They present this program, and they want to help you with your business insurance. It's what they do. They want to be right by you at Century Insurance. Continuing here with Webb Simpson, the 2012 U.S. Open champion. And of course, 2018, he won the Players Championship. It was a brilliant performance from start to finish. And that was, you know, I remember, you know, obviously being there, and you were so good all the way through. And after it was over, I remember you saying, this feels like my first win. I want you to remind people of why you felt the way that you felt.
Yeah, well, my previous win from the Players in 2018 was the Shriners in 2013. So it had been 4.5 years. And, you know, I played a couple team events in those years, but I just haven't won in that time span. And, you know, you start to feel like you felt before you won a tournament, as if you've never won, and are you ever going to win? And I'd played pretty good golf that year up until that point, but just not really close on a Sunday. And I go out round one, shoot 6 under, and it was a great start, but I wasn't thinking about winning at this point. And then Friday was one of those kind of, I think, once in a career rounds. I was 11 under through 16, doubled 17, part 18, but it was one of those rounds where you just feel like everything is flowing. Putts are going in. You're not thinking much, even though you're having a lot of fun doing it, which that gave me, I think, a 5-shot lead going into the weekend, which you need all the help you can get in terms of leading at the Players. But Saturday was a great day. Shot 4 under and increased my lead to 7, which I had never had a lead like that, whether PGA Tour golf or amateur golf. And it was a hard thing to sleep on because I don't play till 2:40 or 2:50 on Sunday.
Yep.
I'm an early riser. I had all morning to think about it. And that golf course is quirky in the sense that somebody could go shoot 64 or 5 at any day, and, you know, you could shoot 74 or 5. And so I kind of had to weather the storm there Sunday. I bogeyed 8, I bogeyed 10. But walking back to 11 tee, that long walk, Paul reminded me that we got birdie holes coming up in 11, 12, and 16. And, you know, he just, that's the power of a good caddy in that moment, reminding me I'm playing good golf. We're right where we want to be. And I was able to get the job done. You
were the last year with the May date. So, you know, the early part of your career, it's May. Yep. And then the year after you win it, it's back in March. Rory wins it in 19. The game plan there, explain what's the difference about the game plan from the years preparing for a May date and now that it's locked in with March? Yep, it's very different. The May Players is firm. There's no overseed. Balls run out. You know, dog legs are a little harder to keep it in the fairway. Greens are way more firm. You'll watch, you know, the March date green or balls land on the green, they kind of plug or even spin back. You know, 17 becomes hard in a different way in March. In May, balls will land on top, they'll bounce in the water. In March, you got to be worried about, are you spinning it too much back off that hill? And so it's certainly beautiful in March. Some guys like a Rory, kind of the longer, higher hitters, I think prefer March, fits their game better. But for me, shorter hitter, again, I was shortest player in the field that week, and it didn't really matter because my ball is going to run a lot, and I can get to the end of those dog legs, whereas some guys are just flying it to those spots. So I wish we would go back to May. That was my favorite, but it's my favorite tournament there is. The idea of it being in May leads to, because you've been involved on the administrative side as far as being on the board here. How much change is it going to, or is it going to be so significant that people are going, God, this is really going to be different? Do you think we're going to be saying that? Well, I think Players has historically had the greatest field in golf. Yep. I think, you know, the official World Golf Ranking has awarded the winner around 80 points every year. But I've always been an advocate, you know, and I think other players agree, if it is the strongest field, you know, kind of pay the man his money and award it what it should be, 100 points. I don't think it's any harder to win a major than the Players just because it's called a major. You know, there's certainly a little more pressure maybe the bigger the tournament gets, but the Players is really big. It's hard to kind of close the door 16, 17, 18 with all the water, the pressure. We've seen, you know, the history of 17. So I'm interested. It's kind of in its own category. It's not
considered a major, but it's not a regular tournament. It's the Players.
That to me is why that's the greatest value. Nobody else has the distinction that it has. I think that there are, I'm not disputing all the points about the golf course not only being provocative, but the crescendo is really, really challenging physically and mentally in terms of how punitive an off shot can be and what it can do to the result of the golf tournament. I also think that history is weird because the majors have this odd start on date where no one can really universally agree on, well, it kind of was then, but it really was then. The Players is just that, it's the Players. To be one of one, to me, has a value that why try to shoehorn your way into another category when you are the only resident in a category that will never be infringed upon by any other tournament.
Right. Yeah, I think they would be smart to keep it as the Players in its own category, like you're saying. But I think the official World Golf Ranking should recognize it as a little stronger than what it's been over the years. Because, you know, another reason I love the Players is you have every type of winner. You have short hitters like a Fred Funk or even me in 2018. You have bombers who win there, Henrik Stenson, Tiger Woods, you name it. There's been all sorts of winners there, and I think that just yields to the genius of Pete Dye. I think it yields to the genius of it's just a unique place, and it's hard to win. It's hard to get the job done, but there's so much excitement around it. I love watching it. I love playing it even more. I'm going to miss it this year.
Do you think fans can embrace a tiered system, which has kind of existed through time, whether it be Jack being very particular about his schedule that was built around majors, but television wasn't as significant in terms of how much you saw of it. Tiger ushered in the electronic age and more rounds being seen, and his events felt elevated, whether they were or they weren't. I mean, it's just the way it was. And now we have a signature series. Are we going to have a clear distinction of Tier 1 and Tier 2 starting in 27 into 28?
You know, I think we're already there a little bit. You know, I'm on that kind of, I call it the 1B schedule. I'm not in the signature events. I'm not in the majors, but I'm fully exempt other than that. And so, you know, a guy like Scottie Scheffler or Xander Schauffele, I might see them only a couple of times this year. And so I'm in a sense on a second tier tour, even though it's still part of the PGA Tour. I'm just not in those big events. But I also think they've created a system where someone in my tournaments has a strong desire to get there, and it's just created this competitiveness that maybe wasn't there earlier in the years before. Maybe there's been some complacency, and so now I'm hungry to get in these events. I don't want to miss the Arnold Palmer Invitational this week. I don't want to miss the Players. I don't want to miss RBC Heritage coming up, and so it's given me kind of a drive that I didn't have maybe in years past when I wasn't in these tournaments to get back in them. And as competitors, we want to play against the best players. We want to be in the best fields. We want to be in those moments that matter most on Sunday. They're nerve-wracking. There's pressure, but that's what makes it so fun to test ourselves to see if we can get the job done.
But some people who play for a living don't play much when they're not on the job. You like playing golf. This region has seen an explosion of really good golf. Have you played anywhere fun in the last year that you hadn't been to before? Have you been down to South Carolina and seen that trail that's emerging of all these great golf courses?
I'm really bad. I mean, I get spoiled at Quail Hollow Club. So when I'm in town, I really just play there.
You got young kids. It's not easy to run off.
It's not. The days of me going on guys' golf trips are long gone. But yeah, golf courses are popping up everywhere. I mean, Zach Blair's place, Tree Farm. I've heard crazy good reviews about that place.
Old Barnwell. Broom's Edge.
Yep.
I mean, 21 Club, which is, you know, just getting started there. Old Sawmill, just north of Charleston. It's wild. So you haven't played anywhere new that you hadn't played before in the last year? You haven't?
Not in the last year.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't get out much. I mean, if I'm not playing on the PGA Tour, I'm driving the Sprinter van from soccer to other practices around town. So
last thing, Keegan is a friend. He's a peer. You guys, in terms of winning early, winning the majors that you won, he gets his at the end of 11. You get yours in June of 12. You guys are contemporaries, you're friends. The Ryder Cup thing, there is this cloud that's hanging over him that he's expressing all this sorrow and sadness and anguish about. What, if anything, would you say to him? Or that you maybe have said to him?
I've told him, I said, hey, I think more than winning a Ryder Cup, more than being successful as a captain, what he gained through this experience is the love, admiration, and respect from every player that he was captain over, which I said, you can't just have that, that's earned. And when he made his decision to not play and to just be captain, he heard guys say, like, one, we want you to play, but two, we trust whatever you decide. And I said, can you hear anything better as a captain? Because one, your peers are saying, you're good enough, we want you to play on this team. But at the same time, we trust you. If you think it's too much to play and be a captain, you're going to be a great captain. So Keegan could not have done a better job as a captain. He couldn't have. He made every decision with as much faith as he possibly could have, and the guys loved him. We just, we got beat. The European team putted better, they played better, and we made it close on Sunday. But as far as the captain's job goes, he did a phenomenal job.
It's always great seeing you.
Thanks.
It's even better seeing you in the Sprinter van. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Gary.
All right, that is Webb Simpson, of course, winning the Players in 2018 and that U.S. Open in 2012, a 7-time winner. Those are winning words presented by Century Insurance. They want to be right by you with your business insurance. Akshay Bhatia joins me next here on 5 Clubs. Back in this Tuesday edition, 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel, also PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. And this segment is brought to you by Peter Millar, the lifestyle brand for everything you need. And of course, we're a North Carolina-based company, so are they, but they are global. They have retail stores and petermillar.com. Everything in the spring line is there. Speaking of spring, you know what that means. It means a lot of great things. You're going to play golf, but you're going to deal with stuff. And joining me now, 2-time winner on the PGA Tour, huge stretch for him coming up here. But for everybody who has 24 inches of snow in your front yard, it'll be allergy season in like 10 minutes. And Zyrtec is the new allergy relief sponsor for the PGA Tour. You're partnering with them. I'm curious, born in California, years in North Carolina. I live in North Carolina. It can be brutal. Do you have big-time allergy issues that you've dealt with in your young life?
I might have some of the worst allergies on tour. I've dealt with it for a long time, especially in North Carolina, and then kind of the start of the stretch here with the Players up until Hilton Head. And so to partner up with Zyrtec is really nice. Use their product for a long time, and I think it'll be great. I guess 85% of the PGA Tour struggles with allergies, and so to have them as a partner for the PGA Tour and for me as well is a nice bonus to kind of have that on the regular now.
Akshay, I live in North Carolina. I'm the same. I went to an allergist, and they did the whole test you for everything, and so they did like 72 things on my back. And the doctor said it'll take about 15 minutes to see if there's a positive reaction. It took about 90 seconds. I'm allergic to like 85 things that were on that grid, so I know what it's like. The interesting thing about your job is, as this season progresses, you're going to places that, like, okay, it blooms here then, and then you go somewhere else, and now that's in bloom. Is that something that you've had to adapt to?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like now playing on tour for a couple of years, I know when allergies are going to strike me the hardest. Like I said, from starting at the Players, if we do have sunny weather, it's pretty brutal around there. Augusta is one of the worst for me. My first year playing Augusta, I had a massive white towel hanging on my shoulder, blowing my nose, wiping my eyes. And so now I know when to prepare for it and to be consistent with my allergy intake or my medicine intake with Zyrtec. And so, yeah, it's just knowing where and when it's going to hit the hardest and to be really diligent on being consistent.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the early part of the year for you. 3 productive weeks on the West Coast to end the swing. But I want to talk about the putting part of it because a couple years ago, 3 years ago, you were 183rd strokes gained putting. The last 2 years, 35th or better. And you made a big pivot. Is what you're doing now an unconscious exercise with the way that you're putting?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like making the switch to the broomstick has been a really nice, a really nice thing for me. I feel like my ball striking has always been very good. And now to kind of have 2 consistent years with putting has made a big impact on my last couple of years on tour. And so, yeah, it's a great thing. I feel like I'm pretty consistent with how I practice, and it's nice to be a really good putter out here because that's kind of what helps us win golf tournaments.
No doubt. When the rule change was made, I thought, that length putter was dead. I didn't think there was any way you guys could figure out to keep it from being, the butt end against anything. Was that the hardest part? The idea of it not being fixed and create flow and kind of natural motion?
I never really have. The only time I've ever used an anchored putter was when I was like 10 or 11. I used to use a belly putter.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. But as soon as I got into the broom, it's definitely a weird kind of adjustment on how it feels, what muscles are working. And so there's definitely certain challenges to it. When we played Pebble Beach a couple of weeks ago, putting in 30, 40 mile winds is very brutal because there's more exposure to the broom. And I've putted well in certain environments in wind and then not so well other times. And so there's definitely challenges to that. But overall, I feel like the more and more you kind of get accustomed to the movements, it feels like it can be very repeatable.
You mentioned Pebble, 54-hole lead. I know the result wasn't what you wanted. I'm curious whether you're in contention, you have a good week, how much processing and review do you do, whether it be of the week, of the final round? And what I mean is examining what your feels were, decision making, the way you executed things. Do you do full reviews when the week is over?
Certain times I do. I try not to beat myself up, but it's an easy thing to do when we don't succeed and we don't win golf tournaments. And so, the waste management, I played very, very well. Didn't play, there's definitely mistakes I made, but, I went through that week, obviously only lost by 1 shot, and I played really solid golf, especially on Sunday, like very solid, just maybe not, as good as some other guys. And then Pebble Beach was a week where I felt like I played really good golf. I went through it with my caddy and I was like, what do you think we could have done better on Sunday? And there really wasn't one thing that stood out to us. I hit 2 tee shots that I wish maybe would have changed the outcome a little bit. But again, I felt as comfortable as I have, being in that position in probably a year or so. I feel like, sometimes you try and fight the feeling of nerves and everything. And this time around, I felt really comfortable and calm majority of the day and kind of just waited for something good to happen. And it just, was a little too late that day. So overall, it's been a nice stretch of golf. And I feel like I have my golf swing in a nice spot and maybe a couple things that I need to just get, a little better at. But I'm excited for this Florida swing.
Yeah, I mean, the huge events, obviously, the next couple of weeks at Bay Hill and the Players. Did you have deficiencies as a teenager, even as late as the age of 19, that you now consider to be assets? Let's put the putting in a separate bucket. Are there things that you think you have truly made assets that may have been even defined as a weakness 5 years ago?
I definitely think where the game's going with length is important. I've never been the biggest person on tour. And so that's kind of been a really nice thing. These last couple of years, I've had, a great system with my trainer and my physio just to keep my body healthy and fresh for each event we play. We play a ton of golf, and that's been the biggest thing. I've gotten a lot stronger over the last 6 to 7 months, just training and feeling fresh, feeling mentally, not fried going into certain days. And I think too, just preparation wise, I've really figured out a good system for me to where I feel like I've gotten a lot better than I did when I was a teenager.
I spent a fair amount of time with a lot of, good juniors in the summertime, and I get it, and data is valuable, but what I try to tell them is the most important skill is scoring. What do you think scoring is a greater reflection of, decision-making or execution?
I definitely think decision-making is probably the biggest component to scoring well. Because again, we hit a lot of shots as tour players where, if certain numbers or certain flags, certain wins, certain everything kind of like leads up to a great golf shot. And so again, most of the time when we do hit great golf shots, it's because we pulled it or pushed it towards the flag, not necessarily like we were trying to go at the flag. And so again, just making the correct decision to where you're comfortable with the situation helps you execute better, and then can lead to a couple good birdies and momentum. And that's the biggest thing when you're going from 4 under to 6 under and around. It's just having good decisions through each shot.
The players, and with you mentioning the Masters, I always find it interesting for people when they begin their careers and then they start to accrue these starts at these places which are annualized. What's the difference between building a game plan at the stadium course and Augusta National?
Yeah, I feel like at the Players, the golf course, once we get there Monday or Tuesday, it doesn't change a ton. And so you kind of know what to expect. And then obviously you just have to really prepare for certain golf shots that are really hard. And that's one thing I felt like I did great last year at the Players is I probably hit 7 or 8 tee balls on 18, Tuesday or Wednesday night. Same thing on 15. A couple tee shots where I was like, I don't feel 100% comfortable on what shot I need to hit. And so that's a nice thing about the Players is, the golf course is in great shape already, and it just depends. Is it going to be soft or firm? Is it going to be super windy? And it's a golf course where there's a stretch of holes where you can definitely make some birdies, the par 5s especially. And then when you get to Augusta National, the golf course changes so much from Monday to Thursday, Thursday to Friday, and there's all those nuances to that golf course that changes every year that Augusta National does. So whether, last year 15 green was brand new. It was, I think, a little longer from front to back, especially on the left side. So that green was really, really firm. And then 16, it seemed like they maybe softened certain parts. Tee boxes get longer. And at Augusta National, the wind can go everywhere and anywhere. I think we see it every year on 12, obviously. And so, yeah, it's a golf course that is amazing. It's all right in front of you, but it's very hard to figure out. And, I love it. Obviously, watched it growing up. And I've had some good rounds out there. I'm just kind of waiting to put 4 together around there. Feel like I've probably put 2 or 3 good rounds and then 1 not so good round. So takes a lot of mental energy to play play solid golf around there because you feel like you just can't let up.
Yeah, and look, history shows institutional knowledge is as valuable as anything there. Some guys have been close. Ludwig a couple years ago, first blush, Jordan in 2014. But you look at solving that Rubik's Cube, once you start to have time, time's a huge asset. Last thing, the TGL thing for me is interesting because I think it's smart that guys like you, Chris Gotterup, Luke Clanton, Michael Torbjornsen, giving these young guys, that space. It's a golf TV show. Is there a collateral benefit to being around all these other great players in an environment which, look, it's a little frivolous, but you're competing? Has that been beneficial to be around those guys?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We get to, most of the time on tour, we're doing our own things and people are to themselves. And when you get into that team environment, it's just so much fun. And obviously to be affiliated with Tiger on his team, to represent Jupiter, now that I'm a resident here, it's really, really cool. Obviously, I can spitball with him and ask him certain things about whatever it may be, because he is obviously one of the greatest players of all time. But just to compete with those guys on a different level, and it's a different feeling and nerves, and definitely more fun environment. Almost feels like you prepare for bigger moments on tour, because it's pretty nerve-wracking once you get in there. You want to step up for your team and you want to make those putts and execute well. And so it's a lot of fun. I think it's great too, just for you to interact with fans and for people to kind of see a different side of our personalities.
No doubt. You mentioned being down there now. Married life, do you guys have a sandwich night, a pizza night, a pasta night, a movie night? Have you settled in that comfortably to where you guys have things that when you're home that you do on a regular basis?
Yeah, we have dogs, so we try and do at least take care of them and take them to the park once or twice a week, take them on walks. When we're home, it's really nice to sit at home and do nothing, especially for me.
Yes.
And so, we just kind of hang out for the most part in the house and try and get away from everything. Our lives can be hectic on the road. And so it's nice to kind of unwind and kind of hear, just not really talk and watch shows. And
it's one of the great joys in life, sitting at home and doing nothing and knowing the dogs are in the house. It's invaluable. Thanks for taking the time. The ANGC hoodie, it's a 1 seed. I evaluate what everybody's wearing when they come on. It's just a hard thing for anyone to beat you with that hoodie. It's too good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey, listen, have a good stretch coming up. And again, thanks for taking the time. Zyrtec, you're attacking your allergies the right way with Zyrtec. We continue here this Tuesday edition of 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel right after this. Back in here on this Tuesday on 5 Clubs. Last couple of minutes, this segment brought to you by Peter Millar. So proud to have worn this great line, the best luxury brand there is, for 16 years. Everything you need as we transition now into the month of March for the spring into the summer is available for you at petermillar.com. Getaway day for us. You're going, wait a second, it's not Wednesday. No, we are headed down to Boca. Tomorrow the show will originate live from the James Hardy, and that means Champions Tour players and NFL Hall of Famers. And I love when my guys that I've got in the studio during breaks are talking about great straight-on place kickers from the 70s and 80s, because there are a couple kickers in the field on the Hall of Fame side. Jan Stenerud, Morton Anderson, heck yeah. But I know that Darren Clark is scheduled to be with us. We love having Darren Clark on this program. Billy Andrade, we think is going to be with us. Jay Haas. Interesting note, all 3 went to Wake Forest. You're going, really? I know about Jay and Billy. Oh, yes, Darren Clark, a deacon for not an extended period of time, but nonetheless, it counts. So we're looking forward to being there tomorrow. And tonight, a late one at TGL. First time for me in the building, getting to see the Bay and Jupe Links. 9 o'clock is when this thing's going to start. And we've got a show tomorrow at 8 o'clock in Boca. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it. I'm looking forward to seeing it, seeing the whole experience, so on and so forth. A couple notes about Puerto Rico and about Bay Hill. And I was listening to a call that everybody on the Versant kind of USA Sports Golf Channel team was having yesterday, and it was about all these storylines in Puerto Rico, and it's true. Look, these wins in these opposite field events are not only huge, but I think that we understand that getting a win here is a huge connector potentially for that player to whatever kind of tier system is going to become even more clear going into next year. But if you consider not only you have the highest ranked player in the field is Michael Brennan, you've got Rasmus Højgaard, who is going to play in Puerto Rico as well, but you have all these young guys who, by way of whether it's PGA Tour U like David Ford and Gordon Sargent and Luke Clanton, also in the field, but you also have a lot of college guys who are on sponsor exemptions as well as we get closer and closer to the heart of the college golf season headed toward the NCAAs. And you can add the likes of Blades Brown and Miles Russell. That alone makes, I think, Puerto Rico particularly interesting. And as it relates to Bay Hill, if you've listened to me talk about pathways to these signature series events, I think there should be more. I think the field should be larger, and I think that there should be more trending opportunities for players, whether it's second alone, third alone, in an event that precedes it. And anybody who wins a golf tournament on the PGA Tour should get 2 starts in signature series events. But what we do have currently with the Aon Swing 5, those guys include Nicolai Højgaard and Keith Mitchell, who overcame a late double. And let me just say one thing about Keith Mitchell. The pale yellow trousers with the white top, the white leather uppers, and that white visor, that was premier, vintage Palm Beach. Truly, only he can pull it off. But Keith Mitchell, Austin Smotherman, Patrick Rogers, Andrew Putnam, those are good pathways. And those are the types of things that as you tier this system even more, you should allow those storylines to be told the week before and then amplified the week of with these guys getting starts in these events. All right, TGL tonight, obviously, in the crowd. And then tomorrow, looking forward to being at the James Hardy down in Boca with some great players, not only Hall of Fame football players, but golfers as well. Have a great Tuesday. See you tomorrow.